All right, you guys are weird because you wanted me to do something on Cleveland heads. We're talking esoterica inside of Ford Esoterica. This is a small slice of the Ford world, and yet you people said yes. By all means, let's watch something on Cleveland heads. So today, that's what I'm talking about, is what Cleveland heads are good, what Cleveland heads suck, and what Cleveland heads you should probably avoid like the plague. After the break. This thing is so heavy, I can't feel my legs! Oh my God, they're really heavy!
Restoration of a classic Ford is a journey of discovery. Let Autocrafters help you with yours. We offer quality parts for Falcon, Fairlane, F-Series, Galaxy, Maverick, and Pinto. Contact us today.
All right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to break the rule I set in the last video where we talked about this stuff and actually go into the engines post 351 Cleveland, which is the 351M and the 400, which are a completely different branch of the family. They're kind of like the red-headed stepchildren of the whole Cleveland clan. And you know how people treat red-headed stepchildren. They don't like them very much, and a lot of times bad things happen to them. Witness Andrew, our camera guy, because he's a redhead. I don't think he's a stepchild, but still, we kind of beat on him a little bit around here, like I do whenever we're talking about his drinking problem that I said I wasn't going to mention anymore, that I'm now mentioning again. In any case, what I'm going to talk about is those two engines. They are kind of red-headed stepchildren, but they have come around a little bit in the last few years because people have realized that they have some advantages over the Cleveland. One of those advantages is a larger journal size on the main crankshaft. If you have a larger journal size, you get more sweep area for oil. It keeps things a little cooler in the bottom end of the engine. Another thing that they have, which is not necessarily a good thing, is the fact that they are both using the Big Block 429-460 bell housing pattern, which is a true problem from the aspect of that stuff just generally costs a heck of a lot more money. If you go out to find an automatic overdrive for that engine, you're going to have to try to find one from a truck, and then you have to try to figure out how to mate all that crap up to make it work. It's not a lot of fun. It's kind of like working with an FE. The FE exhibits the same kind of problems because it has its own unique bell housing setup that was never used with an automatic overdrive, and thus you have an issue there. Not going to get off into the FEs today, though. That's a completely different problem altogether. Also, this sucker has a longer, taller deck, much like a 351 Windsor, and so what you have is a different intake manifold. Now, because of the things that are being done in the world today, you can put a set of 351 Cleveland heads on that sucker with an aftermarket intake manifold and have a reasonably good performing Cleveland-based style engine. You just have all those other things going on. But if you stay with those stock heads, what I'm about to talk about is going to bite you in the rear so hard you're going to yelp. All right, now what I'm going to talk about is the worst cylinder head Ford put on the 4V engines ever. It was bad. It was bad enough that I can't even find any information on them. I can't find photographs of them anywhere, but I do know that they exist because I have some pretty reliable sources that talk about these cylinder heads. Now, why these cylinder heads suck so much is because Ford took the D3 AE head and they, with the big ports, the big intake ports and the big exhaust ports on them, and they threw the 2V head valves in them, the 204 intake and the 166 exhaust. They chucked those things in the hole. This cylinder head is a dead dog walking. It is bad. It doesn't perform well at all. If you can at all do it, ditch them for an earlier set of open chambers even, and you'll get better performance out of the engine because it's just choking that thing with those valves. If they had gone and reduced the port size and done something where the chamber was smaller, it would have been better. But they didn't do that. They did the cheap thing, like manufacturers sometimes do. All right, now what I'm going to be talking about is what I call the Q-code head. This head is the one that was used from 1971 to 1973. It has a 76, I think, 0.5 cc chamber in it, 219 intake valve, 171 exhaust. It's a huge valve. The valves, I think, the exhaust valve is actually, I think, bigger than a small block Chevy valve for the intake. So, you know, it's big. Humongous ports so big that with an automatic sometimes they don't run as well because they just are trying to suck something that's not there. You take those cylinder heads with the big ports on them and you do a stroker kit with like a 383 and suddenly the big port heads come alive. Now a lot of people don't like the open chamber head because it has a real problem with quench. It doesn't cool the fuel off enough, which causes it to ping some over what you see with the closed chamber heads. Personally, I've never had a problem. If you put a big enough cam in there, it's not an issue, at least as far as I'm concerned. I've never had an issue with it. But a lot of people say that they're not as good a head, so they get relegated to right up next to, but not quite in the same neighborhood with the 74 version of that same head. All right, now I'm going to talk about the rarest cylinder head of these, and it's not really that rare because there's not a whole lot of difference between the cylinder heads, but that is the Boss 351 head. Ford only built 1,806 Boss 351s compared to like 6,500 Boss 302s, and I know there's probably some Cougar eliminators in there with the Boss 302 engine, and I don't know if that's included in the 6,500 or not. But the Boss 351 is probably, in my opinion, actually the quintessential cylinder head for a 351 Cleveland because it has all the goodies that you would want. It has screw-in studs, it has guide plates, it has a mechanical cam, set up for a mechanical cam, so you get all the things that you would possibly want to add to a 351 Cleveland to make it run better. It has a 66cc chamber, the thing netted out to 11-to-1 compression ratio. I mean, seriously, it is among the best of the Cleveland heads. 219 valves, 171 exhaust valve, just like the open chamber heads, but it had that closed chamber which made things a lot better. Now I'm talking about the 351 Cleveland 4-barrel head that was put on the 70 and the 1971 M engines. That's the code on the VIN was an M. And this is the quintessential head. This is the one that everybody looks for. It's the closed chamber head, has very good quench. You can run a higher compression ratio with these heads because it quenches the flame front a little bit better from what I understand, causing it to keep the top of the piston cool so you don't have any problems really with it pinging with more compression. Average compression ratio on these things was about 10-to-1, where the Boss 351 was actually around 11-to-1. So it can tell you that you've got a little bit better performance line out of this particular cylinder head. They had the sled inside of the rocker. Not an ideal setup as far as performance is concerned. Like I said, put a set of roller rockers on there, you'll be thanking me later. But it's the same 219 valve, same 171 exhaust valve with a better quench on the head and a closed chamber. It's probably the best of the 4V heads out there. And I'm going to say this about 4V heads. I like a 4V head for a 4-speed. I also really like running the 4V head with the 4300D spreadbore carburetor. The reason for that is the small venturis on the primary sides of things, when you take off and you're running through those, it increases the port volume on those heads and makes them breathe a little bit better, and it gets you a little more spark off the bottom end. I'm not going to go any further into that because we get into things that people's eyes will start to glaze over even if you're extremely interested. All right, now we're going to take a trip down under, and I know very little about these heads other than apparently in the Cleveland market, they are magic. I actually own a set of the Aussie 2V closed chamber heads. I have been offered a fresh set of closed chamber 4V heads in exchange for these heads. That's how much people like them here in the States, and the Aussies love them too. But down under, these were the normal head. There were a ton of them floating around out there in the world. There's just not a ton of them floating around over here in the States, but that's what they're doing. The 204 valve with the 166 exhaust valve, it's the closed chamber that you get on the 4V head. They run magical. My Cleveland, I love it. In that 69 wagon, it's got plenty of spark and go, so I'm real happy with them, but you just have a hard time finding them. So they kind of break outside of the desirable head market. They are very desirable. They are very hard to find, probably on the level with a set of Boss 351 heads. If you're going to do that, you might as well go out and buy a set of the aluminum heads and be done with it. All right, now I'm going to talk goofy stuff that's going to help you out when you're looking for a set of these heads and you're looking at them on the car to know kind of what you're getting yourself into. I'm not going to go into the Boss 302 side of things because it is as much esoterica as the as the Boss 351 as far as finding a set of those cylinder heads. There aren't many of them rolling around loose in the world. So what I'm going to tell you now is what you can look for. If you don't see anything up in the corners of the cylinder head, there's no 4 there, there's no 2 there, there's no M there, it could possibly be a set of Boss 302 heads. Now that means it's going to have the big ports on it like we've shown you before in some of the pictures, like the picture I'm showing you now. It'll have the humongous exhaust ports on it. It'll have the humongous intake ports on it. You'll be able to tell it's a set of 4V heads. But the best thing you could do is ask them if you can pull the valve covers off, because if it is a set of Boss 302 heads, the part number is going to be on one of the intake runners inside of the cylinder head. You'll be able to see it. It will also have screw-in guide plate or screw-in studs and guide plates. So there you go on that. All Cleveland heads have something marked in the upper ears of them. If you have a 351M, it'll have an M in the upper corners. If you have a set of 2V heads, there will be a 2 there. If you have a set of 4V heads, there will be a 4 there. Weirdly, and one of the things I just recently found out, didn't know before now, is that if you have a set of 4V open chamber heads, there will be a dot next to the 4 like I'm showing you right now. Congratulations, you and I both just learned something new. You know what I'm going to talk about now is we're going to talk about subscriptions, because we're on our march to 100,000 subscribers. We're in the 88,000 mark at this point. Marching to 100,000 subscribers. We would like for you to help us by going out and letting people know, hey, you need to subscribe to this channel because these guys are good dudes and they give us all kind of cool information that has possibly put me to sleep more nights than NyQuil. What's it going to hurt them? Go out and subscribe. Hit the bell for notification. It's awesome. Also, try out our Patreon account. At the $10 a month level, you get monthly meetings with me on Zoom. It's not like there's a cardboard cutout of some dude sitting there. It's actually me. I meet with you. We do tech Q&A. We have a lot of fun. We've actually started being more active with things that we're putting up on the main Patreon page. We're even doing videos for the guys on Patreon. Every month they get a fresh video that nobody sees. And no, it doesn't affect anything we do here at Manic Mechanic or over at Auto Resto Mod. It's just something we do because you Patreon guys are so cool. Matter of fact, there's a list going on, maybe here, maybe there, maybe up here. I don't know where he's put it. He keeps moving it around. It's like Jenga. I never know what's going to happen. So I don't know why I brought Jenga into this. Anyway, please check out the Patreon account. Do me another favor, folks, and be kind to each other, be good to each other, love on each other. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you on down the road. That was probably one of the worst video days I've spent. You would think something as simple as sitting down and talking about something I've known since I was 15 years old would be easy. And it is, until you start breaking it down into all the little tiddly bitty pieces that are involved. It's enough to give me a facial tick. Why Ford had to make things so hard, I don't know. Why couldn't they leave this one? I mean, it would have made my life so much better. If it had been a 219 valve in 1974, it would have been one less thing I would have had to talk about. What if it had only been just 2 cylinder heads? There's like 6 of the same basic cylinder head, plus the stuff that those people down under were making. Andrew's getting attacked by bees. They're carpenter bees and they're not going to hurt him. He doesn't know that apparently, because he's jumping around like somebody's put ants in his pants. It's been a tough day. I'm going to go turn the electricity on in my building because it's finally up and running. So, bye.